Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to the Sultanate of Oman. Today we are gathered for the 2018 SPE-EOR Conference at Oil and Gas West Asia. SPE-EOR Conference at Oil and Gas West Asia, since its inception, is recognized as the most established conference of EOR technology in the Middle East, attracting NOCs, IOCs, service companies, and other major companies. It is organized by the Society of Petroleum Engineers to offer networking, business, and educational opportunities to all professionals with an interest in enhanced oil recovery. To begin our program, please join me in welcoming His Excellency Salim Al-Aufi, Undersecretary, Ministry of Oil and Gas, Sultanate of Oman, for his opening remarks.
Good morning to you all. I know I'm a little bit probably overdressed for this particular session, but that's okay. I need it for the next one. First of all, let me welcome you all for the 11th edition of the Oil and Gas West Asia Conference and Exhibition. And I think every time we come to this event, we can see that it's growing. It's growing in terms of popularity. It's growing in terms of contribution. And of course, when we go and see the exhibition, you will realize that even the exhibition quality and number is also growing. But before I get into that, let me just welcome particularly those who have joined us from outside Oman. And I've heard the story last night actually quite a number of times. For those who had to travel to Muscat, all they talk about these days is the airport. So the number of times I heard the airport mentioned yesterday and people going through it. In fact, Tarsi even put a picture of the airport. I mean, it's that beautiful, is it? So here's what I decided to do. I bought myself a ticket. And I'm going to use it for this weekend just to know what is it that people are actually talking about. So hopefully I will be just as impressed as you are. But on a positive note, I think the last few years, and we're still in it, have been tough for the industry. And it was a true test of our ability to, using some of the words mentioned last night, to stay the course and to demonstrate the resilience of our business. In fact, we've always stated that no matter what the price, we can deliver.
Your Excellency, for your opening remarks. I would now like to kindly invite our esteemed executive plenary session speakers and moderators to take their seats on stage.
As His Excellency highlighted, the last few years were really tough. So the only way to go about is staying the course, as well as moving toward the new frontier. I welcome you all to this session. Thank you for coming. And I would like also to welcome the panelists for joining us today. And I will just let Dr. Sultan to highlight the main theme, explain about the main theme. So without further ado.
Assalamu alaikum. Good morning. It's good to see the attendance. Last night, I think, was also another big show of the interest on this conference and the number of attendees. The register so far exceeded the 400. And the number will go up certainly, and we expect it to reach even the 500. As has been said by His Excellency, this conference is growing quite well, and it is staying the course. In the organizing committee, we had a discussion about the theme. Shall we continue with the UR theme as the main theme of this conference? And it was unanimous agreement that yes, we need to continue with the UR as a main theme. Of course, this conference is one of the two main conferences worldwide, globally, on UR and gas oil recovery. The other one is the Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, with the recent drop in oil prices, the question has been raised about is the UR still valid? Is it viable to go after? Particularly, we know that UR development is normally quite costly and it requires significant investment. And so the question is basically being asked, is it need to continue with the UR or not? And again, it was unanimous agreement. Yes, UR is the way to go. We need to adopt basically to the new conditions. And this is one of the main aspects of this panel, is how to stay course in the UR side. The other element of this panel, the theme of the panel is the theme of the conference, which is staying course and moving to new frontiers. So the other part of the theme of the conference and the panel is moving to new frontiers. Yesterday, Mr. Darcy, maybe the SP president, gave us very good insights about what are the new frontiers we are looking at, and today certainly will hear.
Okay, 1980. By actually reading out 1980, started my the theme of my talk, because actually last month I reached 38 years in PDO, and then this thing was happening. I think I was at the first OGWA. I think I've been to every single one. But obviously when you're thinking, what am I going to say in this session, you can't help but reflect on what's happened in the last 38 years. And can I have the first slide up, please? The only slide up. What's happened in the last 38 years, and say how relevant is it today? Now, the first thing I'm going to do is put a somewhat discordant note. I know the theme is EOR, but the theme for me is about frontiers and staying the course. Now, the first reflection I had is that in all 38 years I've been working in PDO, what have we been doing? We've been actually moving to new frontiers. And apart from one time, and I'll talk about that, we've always stayed the course. The thing is, those frontiers are very different. So when, in the period just before I joined PDO, I think the frontier was North Oman, the Ebals and Fahoods, and moving into Central Oman. As I joined PDO, the future wasn't looking that great. I think we were producing something like 350,000 barrels a day, and the general view was by 2000 it will be all over. And the new frontier there was South Oman. Now, in fact, my earliest time as a well site P was in Marmul, funnily enough, doing an injectivity test for polymer flooding. So that was interesting, because we moved to the new frontier of the south. The first thing we noticed, well, it's heavy oil. And as early as 81, our next frontier was going to be EOR. And as I said, I was involved in a polymer pilot. We had a steam pilot. And that was the future as far as we could see. PDO's future is EOR. I think that there used to be these little stickers that would be on people's doors. Steam is no dream. Then came 86. And 86 is the 1 year that we faltered. Because the results of certainly the polymer pilot were textbook. Absolutely textbook recovery. The steam flood, we learned a lot about operations of running a steam flood in Marmul. I think we also learned that Marmul probably wasn't the best place for it. But come 86, we faltered. We didn't stay the course, and we let it go. Thinking again about that, I regret that. We lost 25 years of potential real knowledge of how to run EOR in this region. It took a long time to get back to it, but so be it. We faltered on that, but then the new frontiers came. And our new frontier then was horizontal drilling.
So the subject for today's discussion, from concept to producing, and you'll see a variety of presentations from the panelists. For myself, I will take you through basically the journey that we follow in PDO. So every organization, every institution have a decision gate process which they actually follow to come up with decisions on projects. In PDO, in Shell, we call it the opportunity realization process. The stage gate process takes a project through various stages of identifying the prospect, identifying the opportunity, going through a selection process, assessment, selection, defining execution and operation. So during this process, an opportunity is basically looked at from the various options are studied, where you actually look at what are the different ways you can realize the opportunity, maximize your TCOP effectively, and then you converge into a selected option before you actually go into the execution phase of the contracting and actually executing before you go to operate and maintain phase. And so many organizations have such processes, and this is the one that we use in PDO. And what you would normally find, and that's true for all organizations, is that it takes a long time to actually reach the point where you can actually make a decision to move ahead, the final investment decision. On average, an ORP cycle can take to about 3 to 4 years. During that phase, we are basically exploring. We are exploring for different ways you can actually implement. You are looking at different analogs, and after about sort of decision gate 1 to decision gate 4, what we call for up to the point of FID, when you're talking about 3 years or so, then you start the execution, where you actually, based on your contracting strategy, lead into a different way of execution. And what we have been looking at in PDO is how can you make it faster? So the time it takes on the front end part of it, we have introduced Al-Fikr, and we'll talk about that. And then when you're actually in the execution phase, what models we have been trying. So I will share that with yourself. So what is Al-Fikr? So Dr. Ali Ghaisi sitting here is the master of brainchild it's his brainchild effectively. And what we do is, when we look at, if you look at PDO's operation, where you have got 45 years of production experience, and you got 180 oil fields, 13,000 wells. There is a lot of data. And when we actually start to move into looking into a new prospect, instead of starting from scratch, you basically start to use that catalog. You start to use that data. You do the analysis of, well, this is an analog which is very similar to a analog called X. So you don't start with scratch. So if a 5-spot pattern has worked in an analog, and for this viscosity of oil, of this permeability in a Gharif or Shuaiba, that itself allows you to do fast track your field development plans significantly. So using those analogs, using the catalog, you can basically arrive to your field development plan in about 60% or 50% of the
I'm Captain Yasser Dusouki, the Managing Director of Cipro Petroleum and Marine Services Company, with our main office in Alexandria, Egypt, and we have a branch in Kuwait, serving the Gulf area. Our main core of business is we are marine contractors. We are evolving in diving and hydrographic survey and geotechnical investigation with a vast experience in the Mediterranean and Gulf. We are exhibiting here in OGWA to search new opportunities in Oman, and we are thinking of shifting our branch in Gulf to Oman to serve the Gulf area, because we know that the opportunities here are so much promising. So we are here as a first step of the market survey. After that, the second step, we decided already to open a new branch in Oman, inshallah. So I hope that we will do good, inshallah, to serve our company and to serve Oman, inshallah. Thank you very much.
And I will try to present the work that we have done in SQ in the last 10 years. Actually, if you look at in the slides there, you see the red colors there. These red colors, instead of having a pointer, so I'm just going to point, say, number 1, number 2, number 3, and so on. And these are the actual technologies that we have done it. And the first technology to go very quickly is, in fact, about biosurfactants. As mentioned, that we have 5 different biosurfactants, and some of these biosurfactants actually, when we mix with oil, as you have seen the number 1 slide there, is actually when we mix it with chemical surfactant, that we could achieve up to 50% recovery. And actually, when we tested these, with dilution factors up to 20, and we get the same effect. And the slide number 2 is actually about biopolymers. We have one that is already known before, is Schizophyllum commune, but the second one is locally isolated, which is Arabasidium, and actually this is a yeast here that we isolated in Oman. And as you can see there, the recovery of the oil for each of these that we have done it. The slide number 3 that we did that technology where the oil, the fractures, stones and so on and like that. And actually we were able even to recover oil there, as it is shown there, the percentage of recovery that is there. And as it is shown there on that slide, we did electron microscopy, that there is actually the microbes grow there and block the fracture, where we can actually recover more oil in low permeability zones. And then we have the transformation or biotransformation actually of heavy oil to lighter oil, and this is also that we have done it. All these isolates, by the way, are here isolated in Oman from the oil fields. And then here we have a new surfactant there that actually Oman also is known that we have heavy oil, and yes, we did excellent as the PDO and the international groups.
Okay. It's nice to be back in Oman. Thanks for the invitation to be at this speaking at this panel. So I remember the early days when Dr. Ali Gezi, he's in the audience, helped initiating this SP-EUR conference to go with the OGWA, successful OGWA exhibition. That was some time ago. It's so pleasing to see such a successful conference, and the conference is growing in momentum and in popularity. So it's great to be back. I guess that my slide's ready. Yes. Okay. Yes, I will take my 7-8 minutes to give you a quick introduction of sort of where we are from our show's own perspective. So my next slide is to look at this is our lawyer's slide, so you can ignore that. And basically says that what I say here, you do not have to use it to justify buying or selling stocks. So in my talk, I will quickly, the first bullet is to give an update of IUR from our own experience. Maybe looking back a little bit in terms of what has been achieved in the past decades and where we are, and what are the latest developments in the past few years. Then I'm going to show a couple of two technology examples which are really important development in our view for EUR technology. So this is a slide which sort of it's a looking back slide. This is show our own experience working closely with our partners in developing EUR technology, dating back all the way to 1930s, so it's quite some time ago, where we started our steam trials in the US, in California. And then I'm not going to detail every milestone, but a few important milestones is, so the steam trials and deployment moving to the 1950s and 60s, but the important milestone is in the 1970s when we initiated CO2 flood in West Texas, which then became really commercial in the 1980s, and is still today producing commercial oil at very competitive UTC in West Texas. Then moving on, in the 1980s also, you can see in the chart, there is a bullet says chemical EUR trial, and that includes the polymer trial in the Mammoth field, which was a technical success, but at that time, due to oil price, PDO decided, our colleagues in PDO decided not to pursue at that point. But in the in the early 2000s, and we started picking it up, and really then, you can see today, you have heard presentations at the conference, the successful deployment and commercial production of EUR oil by polymer flooding. And we actually taking now forward to look at the potential of using alkali, surfactant, and polymer.
Dear panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I'm really honored to be part of this conference and to have an opportunity to present the current status of the EUR project in Pannonian Basin. For those who are not familiar, where is Pannonian Basin? The Pannonian Basin is placed in several countries. Yesterday you have heard from colleagues of mine from MOL Group some of the experience of MOL Group in Hungarian part of Pannonian Basin, and I will talk about the Croatian part of Pannonian Basin and the current status of the project started there by INA. So practically approximately 10 years ago, when we have started to think about how to apply the EUR project in our portfolio, which is really mature asset, I mean in terms of the years of production and in terms of the current recovery. So practically we have launched a comprehensive screening process all over the portfolio, and we have screened 41 reservoirs, in fact, or 41 fields, with bigger oil in place, bigger than 1 million cubic meters. So the methodology of screening was, in fact, already published in the GPT paper, and it was a purely check cross of the favorable reservoir properties and characteristic with the appropriate HEOR methodology. The output of the screening process is in fact the matching the best EOR technology for the certain type of the reservoir. So practically among those 41, we have selected the most, I would say, most promising two fields, Ivanić and Žutica. So practically in the preparatory phase, we have started to build the reservoir model and the comprehensive reservoir study. Along with that, the pilot was applied with the injection in one well. And finally, the first injection started in October 2014.
Good morning. It's my honor and my pleasure to be here as part of the panel discussion. My talk will really briefly touch on current EOR projects in the region and the challenges we share. So just a brief overview on why EOR is really important is if you look at the total conventional and unconventional resource, EOR sits with more than 300 billion barrels of additional oil potential there. And if we just step back and look at the processes of the different processes of EOR and as my colleague from Shell have mentioned, the journey, I mean, this is something started since the 1930s. It's been in the making for a long time. And I think it's time's really come up now to really implement and execute the EOR projects because of the maturities of the fields. Maybe it reflects a bit of my age in the area. But in general, I mean, the EOR projects, I mean, you know, we're talking about the thermal, and I'm not going to touch on it because there's a thermal, it's a big process, and there's a congress will take place in Oman. So I will really focus on some of the examples of the challenges we see in the region in terms of miscible gas, low cell injection, or obviously CO2 and chemicals. If you look at when we look at most of the EOR projects in the region here, and we look at
panelists and ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are not familiar with MOL or MOL, as we call our company, we're a global or an international integrated oil company with an upstream, downstream, and a chemical sector. I'm the COO for the upstream, and our principal areas of operation are Hungary and Croatia. But we also have a significant presence in Russia, in Kazakhstan, Pakistan, and then further west in the North Sea, the UK sector, and in the Norwegian sector. I'm going to focus today on our Hungarian operations, which have a very long history, almost 80 years in fact. And you can see from this chart that the industry really started in 1940. And most of the big discoveries have been made by the 1980s. You can see the top 10 fields there. And primarily gas at our peak production of about 60,000 barrels a day. But we still have a very active industry in Hungary today, although it's a very mature province. You can see, you know, we've managed to hold our production at over 40,000 barrels a day. We've drilled more than 8,000 wells in that time, and about 1,000 wells are still producing. And you can see here from the number of fields, there's a lot of large and small fields in Hungary, very old, but more than half are actually still in production today. We, because of the nature of our production, the age of our production, we use a kind of cradle-to-grave philosophy. We try to squeeze out every molecule we can from these fields. Obviously starting with primary and secondary technologies, and you can see some of the technologies that we have been applying over the years. Water flood, of course, pressure maintenance through gas injection, fracturing has featured quite large, and of course infill drilling, and we've even done some horizontal drilling to try to maintain our production.
I know in this event you have probably had several presenters from BDO talking about EOR in particular. I'll focus a little bit more on capability development element of this talk. But to set the scene, I could not start without showing what we do in BDO in terms of our EOR journey over the years. And I think we are fortunate to have done all the key EOR processes. So we have thermal projects ongoing, we have chemical projects already implemented, as well as municipal gas.
Good afternoon and assalamu alaikum. I'd like to thank the organizer for the invitation and putting such an excellent event. So I've just totally enjoyed the conference for the last couple of days, and it's great to be here to discuss and be part of this panel discussion about the resource management. So, thank you very much.
One resource is natural gas, and the second resource is people. And we'll talk about how really we can better use them here in Oman. So to start off with, you're all familiar that Oman is one of the leaders in enhanced oil recovery. And Oman consumes daily millions of cubic meters per day of natural gas. Millions. Oman has gas. They have enough to continue providing this resource to burn for steam. But the topic here is, how do we effectively manage that? Is that the best use of this resource? Or are there ways to make it more efficient and to use that resource for the second thing I talked about, which is the people? Release the natural gas from steam creation, use it to create jobs.
And everybody, assalamu alaikum. I'll be very delighted to talk about the resource development. In Oxy, Oxy is an international company. Just want to introduce Oxy very quickly to you guys. We have headquarters in Houston, and we have operation in Latin America, USA, and Middle East. We work with multinational peoples, and we mainly focus on the enhanced oil recovery projects. The big project that we work on, like CO2s in USA, and the very good example of another EOR project, the big one, is the Mekhaizna steam flood project that I'm one of the proud guys that worked on. And then we'll have a lot of detailed discussion tomorrow on that kind of topic. We operate in Oman, we operate Block 9, Block 27. Block 62 and the south part, which is Block 53, which is mainly Makhayzna in this case.
I think my colleague talked quite a lot about people, water management, energy management, gas management, and so on. There's two dimensions I will be adding in my talk. The first one is data, and then the second one is the financial resources management. So, Al Khorayef company is a company around that has basically two main services, one on artificial lift, and the second one on production, surface production facilities. We work both in the Middle East, in Africa, as well as in South America. And being a service company, we work quite a lot with operators. And this gives us a chance to see many projects, many EOR projects. And in doing this, actually, we learn quite a lot. And I will be sharing with you some of the challenges we have seen moving EOR project from concept to pilot to full field. And share with you some of the lessons learned. We have few ongoing projects where we're assisting, and also tell you how actually managing all the resources around this EOR project is important. And then trying to conclude with what are the key ingredients to make sure that managing these partnerships to ensure successes in EOR.
OGWA is going from strength to strength. I think it's an excellent platform to showcase the latest technology, understand what's going on in the industry, and sharing best practices. So I'm glad to see it, especially in this state of the art exhibition and convention center in Oman.
So I'm glad to be here. It's a pleasure to be in Oman. It's my first time here in Oman, but I'm sure it will be not the last time here. So for my presentation and regarding the panel session, I selected the topic carbonate reservoirs. So I will talk about the future and the expectation and challenges in the carbonate reservoir. But I will mention the reason why I did this selection and why I selected to talk about carbonate. But first, before I start with the presentation, let me introduce the university a little bit with few words. Our university is called Technical University Freiburg. It's the oldest university in the area of mining engineering. It has been founded 1765, and the Petroleum Engineering Department or Petroleum Engineering Institute is a part of this university, and it has been established in 1962. And in the last 10 years, we had a lot, several...
My presentation will be a little bit different because I would like to be a little bit provocative. And you could see later several questions in my presentation because I would like to energize a little bit this EOR community. After this 2 nice days, and then in the last day, starting last day of this conference and exhibition, I would like to highlight some views which are not really professional, technical, but as I am a technical person, as a chemist professionally, I have to keep in mind always these kind of topics what I will raise later on. As in the title of my presentation you could see, the main question is start or stop a chemical EOR projects. Yeah, going forward is green, hopefully. Yeah, I won. I'm representing here a chemical EOR just because of my background profession. In our company, MOL Group, we are doing several chemical EOR projects. We have a nice history. We just started in the middle of 90s. First of all, I would like to highlight what type of steps do we have if we would like to see chemical EOR. What are the life cycle steps? At first, everybody starting with reservoir screening. We saw several presentations in this conference, how it is working now and what are the key factors to screen your reservoir. Later on, you have to be careful. We have to know all of the information regarding to your phase behavior. And of course, you are going to the laboratory, some outcorp tests, and of course, then reservoir course tests. And if we would like to follow this life cycle, reservoir course simulation is taking place, it's been taking place. And of course, full-scale reservoir simulation has to be done before doing anything in a real production environment. And if you are thinking on chemical EOR, you need a chemical supplier. It must be selected based on several parameters. And finally, most of the companies starting with a field pilot after the laboratory tests. And if you have a successfully finished field pilot, you reach the full-scale implementation, which can generate the real revenue for the company. But there are several ideas. And the first, you can see in the middle, time. This is really time-consuming procedure.
50% of the oil in Abu Dhabi. And it's known for this phenomena, which is the water override. When you inject water in this reservoir, even if you inject it in the bottom of the reservoir, because of the permeability contrast, the upper reservoir has, or the upper part of the reservoir has much higher permeability than the lower part of the reservoir. You can see that the water only sweeps the upper part, leaves a lot of oil bypassed in the lower part. And this is due to permeability heterogeneity, the contrast in permeability, as you see in the bottom left of your the figure there, and the capillary pressure contrast also due to the wettability of these reservoirs. So in this kind of reservoirs, gas will not work, actually. It will reduce SOR in the upper part, but it will even do worse in the lower part. So you will leave much more oil behind if we go into miscible gas. So if we go into miscible gas, we need to think about mobility control in these cases. The other challenge which we need to look at is the residual oil saturation and the target for EOR. We have two kinds of targets for EOR, either the absolute residual oil saturation or the bypassed oil, or a combination of that. Actually, there's a number of figures in this slide. It's a bit complicated, but it compares between first the residual oil saturation in a strongly oil wet or strongly water wet to a mixed oil wet reservoir. And we think, and we have enough data to show that for the mixed wet to oil wet reservoirs, absolute residual oil saturation is lower than for strongly water wet reservoirs. Not only that, if you go into that standard chemical flood, you want to reduce IFT to desaturate and produce some of the oil because of capillary desaturation. It's much more difficult to desaturate the oil in a mixed to oil wet reservoir because it's first the target is lower because lower residual oil saturation, and you need much higher capillary number. And you can see that in a couple of those figures at the bottom of the slide. For water wet, you start desaturating much earlier, probably 10 to minus 5 capillary number. You can desaturate this residual oil saturation and you get part of that oil out. But for oil wet, it's difficult to do it. You need much higher capillary number, which means you need much higher, lower IFT to target that oil. And the oil, the oil remaining there behind the water flood or after water flood is where the water did go is lower. So there you have a lower target and a much tougher conditions to start desaturating that target. And on the other hand, we have, as we've shown in the previous slide, we have a lot of bypassed oil because of the heterogeneity. So our...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I am really pleased to be here today. It's the first time in Oman, and I like it. And at the end, I would like to thank the conference organization for the invitation. So, what the new frontiers for EOR? I would like to be a little bit provocative, and you can see in the next slides. Okay, is EOR magic? EOR has been and is perceived like magic. Just wave the EOR wand, you can turn your recovery factor to more than 50%. This with no big investment because all the facilities for the production are there. No exploration risk because oil is in place. So the promise is barrel at low cost. Who is not fascinated? But this is the real or not? Starting from many years ago, during the 80s and the 90s, EOR has been a keyword in the oil industry that promises stunning reserves. But there is a problem. Have all the EOR promises been fulfilled? Is the EOR today predominant in EOR industry? You can see in the slide that the current production due to EOR is more or less less than 2 million barrels a day. It turned out that for EOR there is a different story. Shale gas and shale oil, for example, boosted by high oil price during the last year, brought in the market a new player, mainly due to the leverage of fracturing technology and a factory-like approach to the oil industry. Shale gas and shale oil now are surviving also in the low price scenario. Instead, the oil production due to the EOR, you can see in this slide, you can have the snapshot of 1992 and 2016 remain more or less the same after more than 20 years. We have a look at the different technique of EOR. The mainly technique of EOR are thermal, gas injection, and chemical. And today I will focus on...
And so there is a good example in Abu Dhabi where there is this Al Riyada plant. CO2 is captured from a steel plant and delivered to the field for EOR project. So that's for the CO2 part. Here you have this wonderful solar steam glass point generation. You are winning on two sides because, first of all, you don't consume the gas, you save gas to generate the steam, and then you don't emit CO2 to generate the steam. So it's really a double winning situation. And then there are all those things working on how to take care of the water water is definitely also a very important resource, and we need to be sustainable in the way we are using the water. We need to treat our water, we need to recycle the water, and we have done a nice pilot project with OMV in Austria, trying to test different technologies to effectively, efficiently re-inject our produced water and possibly keep the polymer in the right shape so that it could be still useful afterwards. So, last point, offshore, we need to be bold and perhaps bring more EOR offshore. And I take the example of a polymer. So the pioneers were the Chinese, definitely, with CNOOC, which started in 2003 polymer project offshore, and which is still going on. So we had our own project in Dahlia, and it was deep offshore, and only 3 years after first oil, we implemented polymer injection. And now you have the Captain field by Chevron, which is injecting polymer and which is extended. And there are many more projects coming in the North Sea and in Brazil. So EOR is also possible offshore and not only gas EOR. Still, there are a lot of questions, of course. So we have been discussing about hybrid mechanisms by Professor Shehadeh on the combination of WAG and the polymer. We have this combination of low silent swim. How can we really assess the price of these mechanisms and having synergy between them? Low-cost EOR, the big sentence. What is it? How can we effectively go to low-cost EOR, except the small, I would say, tracks I gave to you? And then today, definitely highest technical efficiency is no longer the criteria. We need to create value. And for example, 2% incremental is likely to be preferred to 10% if the NPV is better. But then, how can you decide a EOR project with only 2% incremental oil when we all know that 2% is definitely at the limit of the uncertainty we have on the baseline? And the last point also is very important, how to keep on attracting the young talents and young men, young women, which are much fonder, I would say, Google industry than oil industry, and that would be also challenging in the coming years. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention with this nice landscape of Po, where I live. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's about 4 o'clock, last day. Thank you very much for staying up to this moment. A few concluding remarks on many fronts. So during the course of the event, we have had over 433 participants, representing 121 companies from 34 countries. Technical papers presented in 22 sessions, and knowledge sharing e-poster sessions. Over 340 exhibitors shared their latest technology and services with the conference delegates and visitors to the exhibition. We appreciate the participation of senior executives from around the world who shared with us perspective on the conference theme, staying the course and moving to new frontiers. This year's event offered an intensive program featuring diverse panel discussions, such as from concept to producing, how can we make it faster? Well, thank you all very much, ladies and gentlemen. This concludes the 2018 SPEOR conference at OGWA. Thank you for joining us for this prestigious event. We hope that you find the conference and exhibition informative and engaging, whatever it is, and that you enjoyed your stay in Muscat. We also hope that you made some lasting relationships with your fellow industry professionals. We look forward to seeing you at the next edition. Thank you.